Hey guys, today we have Classic Racks here, and Classic Racks is a new company that we've kind of partnered with here. And what Classic Racks do, I'll let them explain it a little more in detail, but it's a really effective way to make sure that all your trophies can be saved in case you have a bad accident. This is Mark, one of the owners. This is Shannon. Shannon's the main guy at Classic Racks that works full-time doing this, and I'm going to let you guys kind of explain exactly what we're doing here.
Okay. So basically, we're a 3D scanning replicating company. So traditional replicas, you know, you have to make a fiberglass mold and cast and everything and pour them, and that's very cost expensive. And if you're going to do it for insurance purposes, you got to spend the money up front and make multiple replicas. You got to have a place to store them away from your original. And we come up with an idea that, you know, you can digitally 3D scan these and we can 3D print them whenever needed. So basically we could come in, make an appointment with you guys, 3D scan your collection. You get a flash drive that's got all your files on it, and if you ever have a fire, tornado, theft, wife throws them off the balcony, whatever, we can make you an exact replica at any time. Or also, we do a lot of replicas just because of the convenience, because you don't have to give up your original animal and send it to somebody that's going to have it for over a year to do the traditional cast method. We make an appointment with you, we scan it in, or we have a mobile app that you can use on your smartphone to scan it in. We get the files directly uploaded from our app, and we have everything we need to get started on your replica.
What really appealed to me about this was this deer right here. This was the very first deer that grossed over 170 for me that I'd ever shot in my life, clear back in 2002. Scored, you know, he grossed 184. My first deer for Drury Outdoors back when I filmed for them and everything, so it was a special deer. Well, that winter we had a house fire, and this deer, luckily we were able to get it, and we didn't lose the whole house, but we were able to get the deer out of there, but it still suffered smoke damage, things like that. So it reminded me of how easy it could be where you could lose your trophy collection.
Right.
And so I think this is such a cool idea, because a lot of guys can't afford to just have replicas made right now. But if something like that happened and you lose your animals in a fire, I would think the insurance...
That's another huge benefit of what we do. So basically, after we're done with our service, when you have our flash drive, you have a solid case now with the insurance company on what this animal's worth. You know it cost X amount of dollars for the replica. You know it's going to cost $700 to have your taxidermist remount it, and that's the value of that deer. There's no more arguing. It's cut and dry. So that's a real benefit to what we bring to the table as well.
The other thing is too, like the app, it's not really expensive, and it's not expensive to store that data really either. Right. So it's not like you have to have the replica made. It's just, it's there in case you need it. It's a backup. It's insurance.
Yeah. The app itself is free on the Google Play or the App Store, and once you use it, you scan in your animal with it. There's a $37 upload, and then that's it. So it's pay when you actually scan something in, and then you have that file on your phone for as long as you have your phone. You back it up to the iCloud, you just like your pictures, everything else, and you also get a 3D rendering of the animal. We'll show you here in a little bit on your phone, where you can break it out and show your buddies, spin your animal around and show it off.
So Shannon's scoring the deer right now, or not scoring, but he's scanning my first real big deer that I killed. This is the deer that gave me the love of like chasing a particular deer. This was the one deer I was only going to shoot that year. This was the first deer I ever shot for Drury Outdoors. I killed this deer in 2002, long time ago. That's how old I am. With a bow, and it was awesome. I mean, it was just, we just call him the Big Nine. This deer is the one that set me on the course of booneritis. That's my saying, booneritis. And he just was an incredible deer, just awesome. You know, the footage is really cool. If you ever go back to the Drury days, it's on Whitetail Madness 6. You can watch it there and on Boontown. But just a great deer. He grossed like 184 inches as a 9-pointer. I mean, you can see the brows are incredible and his length. But just an awesome deer, and you know, just feels good to make sure, you know, to know that I can have these deer scanned, and I can have, if something ever was to happen again, a fire or anything, tornado, you name it, anything can happen, that we would have a backup of these deer and I could get replicas made up of the racks. Next, High and Tight. So High and Tight is a deer I killed, I can't even remember what year it was. I think it was 13 or 14, but he was a great deer. He actually was shown on their Bone Collector show, plus Whitetail Edge. Had Michael Waddell and Camp and T-Bone and Nick when I killed this deer. Or Michael and, yeah, they all were here. But anyways, he's 183 gross, awesome deer. Killed him my second sit. I saw him the night before, killed him the next morning. I'd been kind of monitoring him. I was waiting for him to work the scrapes just right. I had my cameras close to a bedding area, and I knew that he was a dominant buck, and I knew that once he started working those scrapes in daylight or right before dark or just after daylight going back to bed, that he was going to be on his feet, and that's exactly what happened. I ended up driving over there, and this was back in the day when you pull cards, check cameras, not cell cams. Happened to check a card, had been marinating for 2 weeks, and just 2 days prior he was starting to hit scrapes on his way back to bed after daylight. So I knew then that he was feeling his oats. He was pushing all the other bucks off. A lot of my other deer had left the cameras. He was the one in that core area. So I went in one evening, got the right wind, and encountered him, but he was with a doe. I didn't get a shot. Next morning I went in, and about 8:30 he come back through with another doe, going back to bed, and I got him. This one is my first 200. We call this the 204. This one was in Ohio. This is the only deer in this room that I didn't shoot with a bow. And I shot this one with a muzzle loader. And it was on Dream Season 7 with Drury Outdoors, the year that me and Tim won the Dream Season competition in 2007. So this one, don't really have a name for it. Well, yeah, I do. This is Scrape Master. What am I talking about? So this one is a Scrape Master buck. Killed him in Illinois. Kyle filmed this one. We ground 6 days straight, hunting almost every day to kill this deer, but we finally got him. He's in the 180s, and out of all those, most all my big deer have been killed within the first to second sit, most of them. This is the one I hunted the most, just consistently pounding his core to finally get him. So this one's Titus, the one from Kansas, shot years ago. Awesome buck. He's on season, what is it, 2, 3? But score gross 215. He just had a lot going on. Just a really cool deer. A lot of trash. It was a cool hunt, so check that one out, Kansas. This is Tall Boy. We're gonna scan him real quick. This was the deer I actually shot last year that you probably just watched on video. First one of the year this year that we just released. So this is a deer I call Slammer. Shot this deer first day of season in Ohio back in, I think it's 2009, but I gotta make sure. Yep, 2009. And dedicated this deer actually to my grandfather-in-law, my wife's grandpa, Pap. He was one of my biggest fans. But he had died that summer, and anyways, we dedicated this deer to him. But I'd watched this deer a lot. Me and my buddy Jared Hawkins kind of had this deer pegged a little bit, and I was the one who was able to harvest him, and we got it on the first day of season, and Tim Woods filmed me shoot it. It was on Drury's. I think it's close to one of the last year, not the last, but it was about the last 2-3 years I was with Drury's. I killed this one. Great buck, just a beautiful deer.
What's the company that does?
Look how freaking big this deer is.
This is a giant buck I killed a few years back.
A picture of it.
Oh, I don't.
So this deer is a deer called Picket. Picket, call him Picket because he just looked like a picket fence back in the day. It's kind of what I envisioned, but super good deer. Another deer that's on the Drury Outdoors stuff that we killed. I self-filmed this deer. This was another deer that me and my buddy Jared Hawkins back in the day were getting pictures of and trying to keep track of. Great deer. Killed him on October 23rd in the morning, frosty morning. Great buck. Just cool that we can do this to be able to preserve, have that info in case we ever do, something happens, that we can get a replica made of him. I always thought that this deer, the color of his rack, because this deer lived in he lived in the timber and a CRP field both, like a growed up weedy field, and his rack was kind of yellow. He got a lot of sun at times, but I always thought it kind of looked a little bit like a replica rack because it was just so clean and whatever. But he wasn't a super old deer. I want to say he was 4.5. He might have been 5, but I think he was a 4.5-year-old deer with just crazy good genetics. So this is, I don't really have a name for this deer, but this is a deer I killed in Iowa. He's a really good deer, that's all I can say. We have this one on film. We killed this one in 18. Just a super buck. We had an encounter with a huge typical, ended up killing this deer like 3 days later. And I'd actually seen this deer the first morning and didn't realize he was quite this big. He was at a distance. But what a great buck. Super stoked to have this deer. So this is a deer we call Hillside. I shot him back in, I want to say 14, I do believe. Great buck. Just an older deer on a really rough spot. And I actually killed another deer out of the same exact tree stand that I called Night Train, which we'll scan here in a little while, and he was in the 80s. Hillside's just a good solid 50s buck. But it was a good deer. It was one of the first deer I shot that actually aired the first season of Whitetail Edge. So he's on Whitetail Edge season 1. Wasn't a super exciting hunt. It was a self-filmed hunt, but just a good deer. So this deer here is another Iowa buck. This is a public land buck that I shot. I think it was 2013, I believe. Read it on there somewhere, but it was a public land deer. Great hunt.
I think it says 1937.
Yeah, 27. But yeah, it was a public land buck. A lot of people were always like, do you ever hunt public land? And I have quite a bit in my time. Just never really talked about it early on because back in the day, I didn't want people knowing that I was hunting public land and killing big deer on it, because anybody could hunt it. But now it's like a thing where everybody talks like you're not cool if you don't hunt public. But anyways, so I wore that t-shirt many years ago. But I love this deer, and it's a special deer to me because one of my real close friends in Iowa died of cancer, and me and him scouted these deer out, and I actually missed a 170 the morning same day I killed this deer, and I was so bummed. It was me and him had scouted this deer out. I missed him that morning at like 9:30. That 170 come in and on a ridge and down to a bench, and I was so bummed because I shot right over that deer's back, and I just, something got in my head, and I just sat there, and at 1:30 in the afternoon, hot out, sun, it was November, and I literally had my bibs down, sitting on, and I was down to my t-shirt, and all of a sudden I saw a rack moving, and it was this deer coming down the same path, stopped in the exact same scrape that 170 did in the morning, and I peeled him. And then me and Jake, my buddy that passed away, we got him out of there later that day, and it was just a great time. And it was a good memory to share with Jake before he passed away. So I don't really have a name for this deer either. This is just a deer that the most memorable part of this deer was my son Blaine, when he was 15, filmed me kill this deer. And it was a lease I had got in Illinois. I'd never hunted it before, but I got pictures of this deer in the summer, and it was northern Illinois, and it was just a real thick farm, a lot of beans on it that year. And it was we just caught this deer working scrapes in between two bedding areas, and that was my strategy, to set up in between two doe bedding areas. It was November, and try to catch these deer working these scrapes in between. It was kind of like it was the years that I started calling scrape traps, and that's why I'm such an advocate of black widow deer lures and stuff, and really started learning how to use scent. I always trapped, but I started inquiring that kind of stuff, or instilling that kind of method into the deer, and it really changed a lot for me as far as scrape hunting and things like that, and duping bucks to make them do what you want without a food source or whatever, because you can play with their mind just as much as anything, and they fall for it. So this was one of those deer. Made a great shot with him on him. He died. Well, he only went 50 yards, fell over in the field. It was a bloody mess, but it was a great hunt. So this is a deer we call Vander. Killed him in Kansas. He had the broken ear, so we nicknamed him after Evander Holyfield, from Mike Tyson biting his ear. So anyways, great deer. He's on Whitetail. All these deer have been on film, so you can watch them all on our Whitetail Edge shows. But this one's Kansas deer. The title of the video is called Evander. Great buck. I think he was 164 or something like that. I can't remember. But the mount is probably the most disappointing mount I've ever had done in my life by anybody, and I paid $700 to have it look like a sick goat. Some guy in Kansas did it. I don't even know his name, but my buddy Travis had him do it, and I'm like, I got it back, and I wanted to puke because he is so ugly. He's got this little tiny head and little tiny neck, and he didn't look anything like this. But it is what it is. So, so now I just told her it's the sick goat buck. But still a great deer, great hunt, and the antlers are the most important thing to me, anyways. So this deer here we called On Time. This was a deer that I had a couple years history with him, and he just kind of did the same thing every year. Kind of had the same pattern, and so I called him On Time, because he was always on time, working scrapes, coming to a certain area of the farm that I was hunting him on, and it was a lease here in Ohio that I had to hunt. And just a great deer, not a super high scoring deer, but a really cool deer. This big drop, his main beam drooping down like that. It was a really good hunt. I mean, I shot him and he didn't go 30 yards. Which is always fun when you can hear him crash like that. But this deer also is on early seasons of Whitetail Edge. You can check it out, and this one's called On Time. So today on Whitetail Edge, so this here is the King 8, one of the more popular videos on our channel, and that's what it's called, the King 8. Just a great big buck. The year before he was a straight 8, that's why he got the nickname King 8, and then he grew this little tiny G4 the next year. So but it always called him the King 8, so we just kept that name. But great deer. It's an awesome video to watch, because we called this deer in from a long ways away, and we worked him for a while to finally turn him around, and it's just a testament to the Illusion Systems black rack and the extinguisher drunk call. So you need to watch that video. But it's a great hunt. It's a lot of people's favorite. Just a good deer, and really glad to be able to do this so we can save the rack if something ever happens. This deer is not my deer. My wife shot this deer. This was her first buck ever. And we shot this back in same year I shot the Big 9, 2002. She shot this deer that year, and it was also on the Drury Outdoors show. We don't have a name for this deer either, but it was a really cool hunt. I filmed her kill it. And it was just fun, a good memory for me and my wife, and he's a neat deer for northern Ohio. So this buck don't need much of an introduction, but in case you don't know it, this one is Scissors. Scissors is probably going to be one of the ultimate, I would say, favorite all-time videos that I've ever produced. You know, my fans anyways, this is one of their favorites. We killed this deer in 2020, or was it 21? I think it was 21 actually. And just an awesome deer. The story, the storyline of getting access to a farm, a guy letting us hunt this farm, saying, hey, if you can kill this deer, I just want a free consultation, but everybody's trying to kill him and just it's not getting done. And we were able to get in there and get it done and kill this deer, and it was just an epic story. Made a lot of friends through the adventure, and just a real touching, and feel really blessed to have killed such a deer like Scissors. He's not a super high scoring deer, he's just a big old 10-point. But he scored like 179, 180 right in there gross. Just a great deer. The footage is probably some of the most incredible footage we've ever laid down. 10-yard shot him right in the chest. He literally makes a circle, dies right behind me as I'm doing the interview. It took 6 seconds for him to die, shooting him with a Mega Meat. But just a great deer, and this is Scissors. So this deer here is a deer I call T-Post, and T-Post is special to me because he's the first buck that I've ever shot on dirt that I owned, or that I'm paying for, I should say. Me and my buddy Mark bought a farm together, and T-Post was a deer that I shot off this farm. Great buck. First year we had it, I kind of let him live. I didn't chase him, and then he turned into a really nice 6x6 the next year. Just a beautiful buck. It was a great hunt. Self-filmed it. It's on Whitetail Edge, obviously, season 7. So if you want to watch that, and I killed Scissors and this buck and Roman and another Kansas buck all within 12 days. It was a great year, epic season. So it's just a good deer. I call him T-Post because the first picture I got of him on a Spartan camera, I had the camera on a T-Post on the edge of the field, and that just became his name, because we would say, oh, down there at the T-Post field. And the T-Post was there already because it had the guy that previously owned the farm had a Bluebird box on it, and I kicked the Bluebird box off and put a camera on it. So anyways, that's the story of T-Post. So this is a deer I called Night Train. Everybody else in the neighborhood that hunted this deer called him Big Red, but just an incredible brow tine buck. Had a lot of history with this deer. He was a deer that on the spot that I could hunt, he was never there in the summer, and he would only ever come back to that spot once the pressure got real heavy in the area on bow season. Then he would come back in these big deep hills where I hunted this deer, and he ran a lot of public land and he ran private land both, but he was a great deer, just a legend of the neighborhood, and I was real proud to take this deer. So this deer we call Brute. My son Zach filmed me kill this deer back in the day. Really cool deer. He's got this third main beam, which is really awesome. He really surprised us, actually, like what he actually gross scored. I was amazed that he actually hit 173. We would have never guessed it. But he does have really long beams, and this third beam is 17 inches. But a cool deer, and it was cool to have my stepson Zach film me kill it. And it's on a Drury video too. But just a really awesome deer, and it was a good hunt. I'd watched this deer a lot in the summer, and it was just it was a cool hunt. Shot him out of a ground blind, a redneck ghillie blind. So we're finishing up here, but we've got 2-3 more deer to do. But it's been a pretty neat project. I'm glad to get this done, and I'm thankful to Classic Rack that they were able to drive here and do this. And what a real peace of mind to have this, you know, now to know that if something ever happens, or I've got a file, you know, and that I can get these replicated. Obviously wouldn't be able to afford to get them all done at once by any means, but maybe could slowly do them over time if it was really that important to me. But it would be really cool to just know you had it, and so I'm just very thankful to them. And if you haven't checked them out, check them out. You'll be seeing more stuff from us with Classic Racks moving forward here with Whitetail Edge. And you know, if you got any questions, reach out to us on social media, and we'll get them answered. So this deer here is called Roman. He was on our deer season, or our show last year, season 7. Roman's an Ohio buck. Just a unique character deer. Super long G3s, real short 2s. Not a super high scoring deer, but just a really cool mature buck that I harvested on film. Self-filmed it out of a redneck ghillie blind, coming to a clover plot.
So this is Tad. This is the deer I killed last year. Buckmaster scored him at 178. It really helped him a lot. He had 25 scoreable points. My first urban deer, and yeah, just really happy to have a replica from Classic Rack. It's just such a unique rack, a lot of character, so only Classic Rack can replicate that. So this is the Sheriff. Scored 165 inches. This was my first deer I filmed for Whitetail Edge. Very memorable deer for me, and probably my favorite deer I've killed. So yeah, the Sheriff.
So I want to thank Ben and the Whitetail Edge guys for having us out today and scanning his amazing collection of deer. Man, this is why we do it, because you've got a lifetime worth of hunts and memories in there, and that stuff isn't replaceable. Those deer aren't sitting on a shelf, and to be able to have the peace of mind to replace these if the unthinkable happens. So if this is something you're interested in having us come out and scanning your trophy room, or if you're interested in our app, which is more of a DIY deal, then by all means look us up on the internet. You can find our website, classicracksco.com, and we're on Instagram and Facebook, so just check us out.
Look forward to seeing you all out there.